Welcome back to Takacs McGinnis Elder Law Hour. I'm your host, Barbara McGinnis, and we're talking about issues that relate to aging, unexpected illness, and disability. And specifically this episode, we're focusing on legislation that impacts seniors.
And I'm your co-host, Tim Takacs, and we're joined in this segment by attorney and counselor at law Alan Ramsaur, who has served as the executive director of the Tennessee Bar Association for 20 years. And we also have with us Vickie Harris, founder and CEO of CommunityConneXor and past board president of Nashville's Council on Aging. Welcome, Vickie, and welcome, Alan.
Thank you, Tim.
Alan, tell us a little bit about the Tennessee Bar Association. What does it have to do with state law, state legislation?
Okay, so the Tennessee Bar Association is the voice of lawyers and voice of the profession in Tennessee. About 13,000 members statewide from all practice areas and all practice types. So in terms of legislation, first we obviously look out for issues dealing with the profession and ways in which lawyers interact with the community. But as important as that is the work that the TBA does in providing the expertise of lawyers to the legislature and trying to inform legislation. So if you would take an issue of interest to
Issues that relate to seniors.
Relate to seniors, then there might be outreach to the elder law section of the TBA and call upon y'all's expertise in that area.
Yeah.
Or consumer law or housing or
whatever it is.
Those sorts of areas.
Right.
So probably one of the big things that's impacting elder law attorneys and seniors is any legislation that relates to conservatorships versus supported decision-making documents.
Right. So conservatorship is a pretty strong hammer, a pretty strong taking away a person's rights. And there's been a movement over several years to try to make sure that we only take away those rights that's necessary to take away. It's called least drastic alternative or least restrictive alternative. And that's a good thing. It's a way to make sure that seniors and anybody else, anybody needing a conservatorship only gets those rights compromised that need to be compromised. Recently, an effort has been driven to enact supported decision-making legislation and to promote supported decision-making as a substitute for conservatorships, a recognition that people should be able to make another person responsible for acting with them, but not substituting their judgment, but having somebody go along with you to the doctor's appointment, somebody to go along with you to the bank to get stuff explained.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about opioids. And specifically, there's some new law about limiting prescriptions. How does that affect seniors? Can you tell us about that, either one of you?
Well, first of all, seniors are one of our most vulnerable population groups that live in our community outside of institutional settings. So the restrictions that are being applied to opioid prescriptions certainly could create hardships. Seniors, one of the challenging areas for seniors is transportation. And so as we look at a restriction where there's a limit of 3 days or 10 days for seniors who are suffering with pain, certainly that could create a hardship for those seniors. But I also look at the legislation and note that there are exceptions that I believe that many of our seniors could fall under. Also, I think we have to take into consideration that our rural seniors are most likely going to be most impacted related to transportation and trying to get back to a physician in order to get a prescription refill. Not like urban and suburban areas of Tennessee where we've got pharmacies within a few miles of where we live. I often think of little communities like Curleoka or Farmington where you've got about a 20-30 minute drive to get to the nearest pharmacy. So it will create some hardships, but also I think we need to note that we're in a crisis state as far as opioid use is concerned, and seniors are vulnerable. to opioid addiction, probably more so than the average adult, you or I. And so we, as a state, from a public health crisis, needed to really act quickly. But we had the opportunity, as we learn more about the impact on older adults, to then advocate for where the changes need to be. But this step, I think, is necessary. But certainly, we need to keep in mind the impact on our rural seniors. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, another piece of legislation that you might be able to elaborate on is the adult or the older caregiver law, where you have older adults caring for disabled children. We see that a lot in our practice. What's going on with that?
Yes, there is quite a bit going on with that area, and has been of a major concern here in the state. So the changes that have been made are positive, and creates, I believe, a stronger system of services to support those individuals.
So I know you mentioned, Alan, about least restrictive alternatives to conservatorships. Changes this year?
Sure. So this supported decision making finally got some recognition in the statute, a recognition that that the court ought to consider whether there is supported decision making, or whether supported decision making will work instead of a full conservatorship or conservatorship and the like. Supported decision making is simply really a contract between say you and me, that you'll go along with me and you'll help, and that I release the information, confidential information to you to be able to do that.
That sounds like, isn't that what a power of attorney is for, or is that, are we talking about people that are past that? Or?
Well, power of attorney is still is a substitute when it's triggered.
Right.
Is a substituted judgment. So we're not talking about substituting judgment. This person retains the full authority to make those decisions.
So that's kind of the difference.
Just to have somebody to help.
Okay, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services implemented its latest outcome-based reimbursement program. This is a long question here. And it's about targeted at home care agencies. The program for home health providers is sort of gone from this paper, like a fee-for-service, pay-for-performance, value-based payment. Anything going on from a state standpoint about how to support these initiatives with CMS?
From a state perspective, well, I want to take it from a consumer perspective.
Okay.
Because I often think that many of the older adults don't understand this transformation that is taking place in healthcare, particularly around those Medicare benefits. And so you're correct that we are evolving from a fee-for-service model that we have developed over the last 50 years, and that's about how long Medicare has been in existence. What we have found out as a result of those 50 years of experience is that we spend more in this country on healthcare than any other industrialized nation, Germany, the UK, but we have the worst outcomes. So we are not getting the bang for our buck. And so that fee-for-service model that we've been operating under is also been referred to as a volume-based model. And there was no tie to quality and outcomes. So the more patients that you saw under this model, fee-for-service model, the more you were reimbursed, even though the outcomes were not forthcoming. What we're moving to now, and this initiative that we've seen around home health, is to tie payment and quality together. Okay, so now beginning to hold providers of care responsible for outcomes.
Okay, so let's put up your contact information. We've just got a few seconds left. That's how you can get a hold of Alan Ramsaur, formerly with the TBA, Tennessee Bar Association, and Vickie Harris. And thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
So that's all we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Takacs McGinnis Elder Care Law Hour.
And tune in next time when we continue to talk about senior issues.